Hello everyone! In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about the hasElements function from the previous video. So if you haven't watched that video yet, be sure to take a look at it. And you'll recall from that video that the first time we tried to write this function, we made a mistake. So just as a refresher, what this function does is we input a vector v and a number r, and we want the function to return true if r is in the vector and false otherwise. And what we have displayed on the screen right now is a function that ended up doing just what we wanted it to do. But I did mention in the previous video that one drawback of this method is as soon as we find b equal to true, in theory we want to exit the function, right? Because we've found an element equal to r, and that should be good enough. But the issue here is that even if it is true, we're going to keep going through the for loop. And you can imagine that if we have a vector with a million elements, checking every single one is definitely going to take a lot of time. So if we can end the searching as soon as we find it, that's ideal. So the way that we're going to do that is after we have b equal to true, we're going to use the keyword break. Now what break does is it exits the for loop, and it also will exit while loops. We'll learn about that. So what's happening here is, okay, let's say we go into our for loop. So for I equal, let's say it's set equal to some value here. If v of I is equal to r, so if this is true, then we set b equal to true, then we break. So that means we exit the for loop and we execute whatever happens here. So I can put here, let's display, let's say end of the program. So I'm going to save this. Now let's go back to the command window and try it out. So remember, let's try the vector, let's say 1, 3, 5, 7. And now let's try hasElement of v. Let's see if it contains 5. So we can see here the end of the program that gets displayed after we exit the for loop. And we can see, yep, the answer is true because 5 is in our vector. We can test it with other numbers. We can say, I don't know, like 3. Yep, that works. We can try it with something that's not in our vector, like pi, 0. So right now, this end of the program, I probably did this a little bit backwards to how I should have to make the point, but let's go back to our script. And so notice this display end of the program happens after we exit the for loop, and it's the very last thing that we do before we end the function altogether. And I think I misspoke before. I might have called this a script. We're definitely working in a function. All right, so one thing that we can do just to see how this is working is I'm going to go outside of the if statement, and I'm going to say display, new line reached. So let's think for a minute about what this is going to do. So we're going to go, let's say I equals 1 first. It's going to say if v of 1 is equal to r, then it's going to set b equal to true. We're going to break, and we're just going to see end of program. Otherwise, so if this is not true, then we're going to display new line reached, and we're going to say now I is equal to 2. Then we're going to check is v of 2 equal to r. Then if it is, we'll set b equal to true and break. Otherwise, we display a new line reached. And then finally, end of program. So let's go test it out. I'm going to save it. Oops, wrong way. Now, okay. So let's check hasElement. Remember, our original vector is 1, 3, 5, 7. Let's try 3 first. So hasElement 3. So we see one new line reached, and then we end the program. So why is that happening? Well, remember, okay, first what it does is it checks v at the first position. So it's saying, is 3 equal to 1? No. So then we write new line reached. Then we check, is 3 equal to 3? That's true. So we break, we exit the for loop, and then we go to end of program. So we see new line reached once and then end of program. What do you think will happen if we type v of, check with 5? So let's do it. We can see here, new line reached, we have it twice. Because first we check 1, and it's not equal to 3, so we get new line reached. Then we check 3. 3 is not equal to 5, so we do new line reached. 5 is equal to 5, so we exit out of the for loop and then we go to the end of the program line. Good. Maybe one more thing I can show you is if we get kind of a match on the first try. So does the vector contain 1? Well, the very first thing that we check is 1. So back in our function, v of 1 is equal to 1. So b is true, we break, and then we display end of the program. So we've talked about the keyword break. There's a very similar keyword called return that's more drastic than break. So remember, like we said, break just exits the for loop. When we learn about while loop, it's going to exit the while loop. Now the keyword return, what this does is it leaves the function entirely. So if I get to this return, it's not going to even get to display end of program. It's going to go straight to the end. So let's see how this works. So save it. All right, so again, let's try maybe v of 5. So we can see new line reached twice because it checks 1, it checks 3, then 5 is equal to 5. And because we break as soon as we see 5, we never get to the display end of program. Another thing that we can do is, let's say instead we put return up here. So this is also very drastic. It's never going to get to the for loop. We're going to set b equal to false, and then we're just going to return. So what's going to happen here is this false is always going to be returned. So did I save that? Let me double check. Looks like it is. Yep. So v definitely contains 5, but notice now the result is false. So this function doesn't even do what we want anymore. It also has 1, but it's not included. Even more drastic is we could say return up here, and this is actually going to, well, we'll see in a second. So like this, and we can see nothing is returned because we're telling the function, hey, you should return b, but as soon as we enter, we return, so b doesn't even have a chance to be set to false. So this was kind of a quick video on the differences between break and return. Very important keywords and can be very useful in making our code faster. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.